Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den. With me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. We are going to be keeping rolling on right along with the look at the witch character class for the Pathfinder game. And we talked a little bit last time about the various kinds of features, did sort of a brief overview on the witch character. But now we're going to start getting down into some of the more nitty-gritty details and starting to talk about really how you want to build an optimized witch and really what the witch is intended for. Now, without getting too far into it just yet, the witch is definitely a powerhouse spellcaster, but really where they get to be really just an absolute terrifying, powerful nuisance, pest, and just outright wrecker of everybody's shit is when it comes to buffing and debuffing. With all their hexes and then the myriad array of spells that they have on hand, they can lend a great deal of help on the battlefield. They don't necessarily quite have battlefield control, but they can help establish battlefield control by absolutely decimating an opponent's ability to get anything done successfully, while at the same time aiding their allies in, well, accomplishing whatever tasks they may have in mind. But that's an episode for another time. For now, let's just get right down into this. Starting off, we want to take a look at the stats, how you want to array your various points. Now, again, like last time, we're going to be taking a look at what the 20-point buy looks like. And as you'll see popping up here, when it comes to strength and charisma, you are not the physically strong person. You are not the charismatic charmer that any of the other characters are. These are not the roles you are here to fulfill. So go ahead and dump these down. We've got them at 7s here for this specific guide. Next up is wisdom. Now, making sure that you avoid failing will saves is typically important, but the witch character class actually has a great will save score, so a wisdom isn't quite as important. Certainly, feel free to bump it up a little bit there, but it's not going to be the main focus. And then we have dexterity and constitution. Dexterity is just a prime stat regardless of the character class. Very rarely is it it's never going to be detrimental to have a better than average dexterity score. Just about every single class will benefit from this. I've already talked before about the myriad of ways that it goes towards helping you, what with helping your initiative score, boosting your armor, your reflex saves, various skills. You get the idea. And constitution, well, that helps out with your fortitude saves, which aren't great, and it also gives you more hit points. Can't ever have enough hit points, especially considering you only get a d6 for your hit dice each time you level up. Having some kind of a bonus will be incredibly helpful for you. But the real thing you want to focus on here is intelligence. Intelligence affects your spellcasting ability, the save DCs for your spells. It just is absolutely monumentally useful to you, much in the same way it is useful for a wizard as well. Now, if you're going by any other methods for generating stats, such as rolling dice to try to bump your stats up, then, you may get a little bit more flexibility in these numbers here. Even still, this is the order you want to focus on things. Intelligence you absolutely want to have as your highest, followed by your dexterity and constitution in roughly equal measure. Whether or not you focus on one or the other, that's really up to you, but you really want these to be solid as well. Wisdom, again, it's okay. Strength and charisma, these are your dump stats. These are the ones you really don't want to worry too much about. But going on from that, we need to pick out what race your witch character is going to be. Now, there's a couple of really good choices, but the two prime candidates, one of which always seems to be popping up regardless of the class, is humans. For some reason, we just meld right into everything pretty nicely. You get to throw in a +2 bonus into any score, any of the stats. You get an extra feat and bonus skill points. Incredibly useful. Every class can benefit from having an extra feat, and since every class tends to focus on at least on one stat of prime importance, maybe having two thrown in there excuse me, humans having the ability to throw that +2 bonus modifier to any score is incredibly useful. But a slightly better choice, actually in this case, definitely a much better choice, is the elf. Now, elves blend really nicely into being wizards, or even sorcerers to a certain extent, but elves mesh real nicely with witches. And the reason for that being is they get a +2 bonus to their intelligence and to their dexterity, it's the prime stat and another really good stat to have. Now, you do take a -2 penalty to your constitution, which that definitely stings a bit, but then again, you're not meant to be on the front lines anyways, so ideally you shouldn't be needing those extra hit points too badly. They also get a +2 bonus on overcoming spell resistance, spellcraft checks, and their perception skill, just for being an elf. Then they also get low light vision, so they see twice as far as humans in starlit or dim lighting conditions. They're immune to magic sleep effects, and get a +2 bonus to their will saves versus enchantment spells and effects. Really, really great stuff to have here. Elves really mesh nicely in this, and for the rest of this guide, we're going to be assuming that the character being made is an elf, an elven witch, which, story-wise, it just, I actually like this. This really appeals to me. Some middle-aged elven character, 600 years old or so, out in their own little shack or lean-to out in some swamp somewhere, cackling diabolically, or even delusionally as they go about with their own little cantrips, spells, rituals, and the flavoring and the themes around it, very appropriate. It just appeals to me. But going on from there, as far as other races, there are some that you can make work real nice. Half-elves are a solid choice. For the same reason with humans, they get the +2 bonus that they can throw to any other score. Same thing goes for half-orcs there as well. But the rest of the bonuses that these two other races provide, it just kind of, they're okay. They're nice to have. It certainly doesn't hurt having extra bonuses, but they don't really do much towards making you a better witch all the way around. But they're not terrible choices either. Anything that's going to be negatively impacting your intelligence score, however, that ideally should be avoided, at least from a purely mechanical basis. Certainly there's nothing wrong with breaking from that, especially if it makes for a much better story, like having an orc or even a goblin witch character. Absolutely tons of fun to be had there. I can only imagine it all. But after this, we come up to the witch's skills and which ones are going to be of more primary importance and focus for you. And starting us off, we have the knowledge skills for Arcana, Planes, and Nature. These three skills are going to be some of the most used skills that a witch or any spellcaster really will get use out of. It'll be useful for Knowledge Arcana, will help to identify magic items. All of these will identify a variety of different creatures or monsters. It's going to be incredibly helpful and is, again, appropriately flavorful for the witch. I mean, what self-respecting spellcaster is not going to have Knowledge Arcana or Knowledge of the Planes? This is absolutely something that you want to focus on and try to bump up or keep maximized as much as possible. And then we have Spellcraft, also, again, useful for identifying different magical effects, spells, and is used as part of making magic items, which, again, just fits really nicely with that witch motif. So mechanically beneficial and also story-wise appropriate, roleplay-wise appropriate. Really, really great skills to focus on. And then we have Knowledge History. This one I'm a little bit torn on, especially after going on and researching online, reading through different guides and different people's recommendations over the years. This kind of falls to kind of okay to really useful, and this is going to depend a lot on your DM or storyteller. It's really a circumstantial skill, but I like it, hence why I kind of consider it to be a little bit green, but that's my own personal bias. History major. I really like throwing history stuff into My games get a lot of backstory detail, legends, myths, historical events, so my players definitely do see more use out of a skill like this, but your mileage may vary. Check with your DM to see, they can't tell you everything, obviously, but they can certainly help you with, like, hey, is putting points into knowledge history going to be really dumb? They'll tell you, or at least ideally they should tell you. And then we have fly. Flying is a great skill, but really you're okay putting a couple of points into it. Nothing to really worry about maximizing right away. If you have an extra point or two, dump it into fly. Absolutely. Especially if your other skills have been taken care of. But it's nothing that you need to worry about topping out. But then we come down to intimidate. Don't bother with this at all. You dumped your charisma earlier. You have many other ways to terrify and scare people. Leave this for the fighters and the bard characters, or anybody else with a high charisma. You are not the party's face. Don't mess around with this. Just don't even bother. Just leave it. Don't invest points into it. You'll be wasting your time. But those are these initial skills and the race options and how you want to have your stats arrayed. Next time we are going to be taking a look at the feat selection that would be most ideal for a witch character. Not only feats, but we'll start digging into some of the different class abilities, like the hexes. Hexes in particular are going to be a lot of fun and are going to give you the most flavor and a lot of mechanical impact in your gameplay. Again, not all hexes, are like any other abilities, are created equal, but we're going to take our time, go through them, and pick out which ones are going to mechanically best serve you as you build this character and as you go through gameplay. We'll also take a look at a variety of other class abilities and spells as we go on through this, and even pick out a couple of magic items or that you want to keep a lookout for. Oh, and another thing to cover here, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Witch's Familiar, since, well, as I mentioned before, that functions as the Witch's spellbook, their reserve and receptacle of all the arcane knowledge that they have at their fingertips. But for now, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. If you liked today's video, well, why not go on and let me know and click the like button down there at the bottom. And hell, if you've been liking the content here so far, maybe consider rolling on over to the subscribe button there. And if you do subscribe, click the little doobly-doo bell icon thingamy down there, so that way you get notified the next time that I upload more content here to the channel. Once again, I've been your host, Jordan. You folks have yourselves a good night.